make a move. It's not the time to fail. There'll never come a time like this again. As terrible as this economic tragedy is in this nation, the positive thing is it's leavened the playing field, so people that never had a chance before are now on the same level as those people who would have always been ahead of them. It's time. Go to school. Don't quit. If you can't get it, live in the library. I'm telling you, man, this algebra class, I was struggling. But it was a class that worked with like a computer program. And man, I must have spent 70 hours on that computer program learning. I couldn't learn it in class with this instructor. I don't know if it was her. I don't know if it was me. I think it might have been a little bit of both, maybe more. I don't know. But I would go home and I would spend hours on this computer program learning algebra. And I ended up getting a B in that class. I'm telling you. And that's how I figured it out. And now when I signed up for this next intermediate algebra class, I found the only one that had this same computer program. I wouldn't take anything else because I figured out that's my way. You have to sit down, look at your situation, look at your options, recognize that defeat is not one of them, and figure out your way. I'm telling you, this is the time. This is the time. We can even take encouragement from overseas in the Middle East, from Tunisia, from Egypt, from Libya, from Yemen, from the Ivory Coast, from many of these places. Some of the people are being more successful than others. Some of them are just in terrible situations. But the reality is they recognized that when Tunisia was the first one that started this domino effect of people vying for their rights in the Middle East. And it was like the people around were saying, man, we've lived this way 30 years. We never thought it was going to be different. But look what's happened over in Tunisia. And that's what Egypt, that was what motivated Egypt. And that's when they did their thing. That's when Libya and some of these other places, Ivory Coast and Yemen and some of these other places have begun to do these same things. But what I'm saying is they recognized that this is the time. There hasn't been another time, and there may never be another time, but if we don't do something now, things are never going to change. African Americans in this nation, this is the worst time of our nation, but it's the best time in our nation. And as we spoke a couple programs ago, as African Americans, we've been here from this nation's inception. We were here before there was a nation. We were here during the inception. We were here all these years. No matter what kind of administration, no matter what kind of politics, no matter what kind of unfair treatment, lynchings and KKK, whatever you can imagine, we've been here and we have survived. This is another time. This is a benchmark in history that people can look back one day and see where these people took a stand and determined they recognized the situation, took advantage of the situation, and begged themselves. Go to school if that's what you need to do, and don't quit. If you're struggling and you're not going to make it, stay in the library. You make it. Go to get some tutors. The tutors are free at most of the universities for students. Get some tutors. Make it. And come out on this thing on the other side. And let this be the story that you tell your grandkids. And they don't want to believe you. I remember I used to go into juvenile detention, man. And I used to talk to these kids to try to help them, try to motivate them, encourage them to recognize that there's another way to live. And I would tell them about the life that I lived, the lifestyle that I had, which was kind of jacked up, but I did it to myself. And sometimes they would ask, one of the counselors, was a relative of mine. They would ask him, is he really telling the truth? Was he really like that? And he said, yeah. But I'm telling you, let it be that way. Let your life story be that when you are old and you are telling the story of your life, that maybe your grandkids or maybe your great-grandkids will say, he's not even telling the truth. Granddad couldn't have been that bad. His life couldn't have been that messed up. But yeah, it could be that way. I see this guy in the neighborhood right now, one of the neighborhoods in Dayton. And he's had a terrible addiction problem for the past 16 years that I've known him every day on the street. Just jacked up and toe up from the flow up, you know what I'm saying? Just messed up. And with like 2 weeks ago, and then he disappeared. About 2 weeks ago, man, I saw him driving. This guy was tooting his horn, waving at me. And I'm looking, man, it's this guy, man. He's clean. He's different. It just amazed me. It can happen. Your life can change. Things can change. But you have to take that step. There's a story, a verse from the Tao Te Ching, from Lao Tzu, that says a journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath your feet. Just take a step. Don't look so far in advance. I mean, look in advance, like make yourself out, map yourself out a plan. But once you map yourself out a plan, just begin to take one step at a time, one moment at a time, one day at a time. Don't mess up. If alcohol's been your problem, stop drinking alcohol. It's just a matter of changing your mind. It's just a matter of realizing that this ain't going to work. You know, I came to a conclusion the other day, common sense. I see a lot of folks that don't have common sense, and myself, I've been victim to that as well. And I was thinking, you know, but you find people that have no education that have no common sense. But you find people that have tremendous education that have no common sense. You know, one thing that pretty much rings true among most kids and most teenagers is a lack of common sense. But that's understandable because they're kids and teenagers. I think it needs adults. And now, you know, I've been around the world a couple times, and I've lived here and there, and I've been in corporate America, I've been in unions, I've been in all kinds of different situations. I've met a lot of people, different kinds of people, and what I begin to correlate in the lack of common sense is drug and alcohol use. Even if it's not abuse, just use. Because what is abuse? You know, that could be a relative term depending on who's talking about it, but abuse could be, if it changes your way of thinking, then it's abuse. If it changes the healthy brain that you have in any way, that's not the way it was created to perform, you know. That could be abuse. And so what I'm saying is it's that alcohol. It's the drugs. I see a lot of folks without common sense, and I begin to correlate that. And I'm not saying everybody that drinks or does drugs has no common sense, but even there is sort of a lack of common sense in even drinking and doing the drugs in the first place. And so if you've been drinking or doing the drugs since you were a teenager, when it was quite natural for you to operate in a way that was not, you know, common sense-like, and this is where you got the habit. So you are now an adult, you know, legally drinking and doing drugs or whatever it is, legally drinking and doing drugs or doing drugs. There's an issue of no common sense. Even the fact that you're doing something that's not well for your body or your brain. And I'm just throwing that out there. I remember I saw recently, I was talking to this guy. He was a preacher, as a matter of fact, a good friend of mine. He was telling me about this guy that was really mad at one of these television preachers, because one of the prosperity preachers, and he was talking to, you know, I was talking about money, send the money in, and God will bless you, that kind of thing, you know. And this guy was so venomous, so mad at this preacher, you know, and he was ragging on him, but my friend told me this guy's car was all jacked up, just being held together by this and that. He was real poor. His life was all jacked up. I'm like, how can you rag on this guy when he's telling you how to be this way if you're not? Now, if you were wealthy and you had yourself together and you were well, and then you were saying that this guy was wrong, you know, we just need to get ourselves together. This is the opportunity as African Americans, like no opportunity we've ever had before. We had opportunities years ago during the war, like, you know, I think the Spanish-American War and the World War I and World War II, African Americans, and Vietnam, of course, African Americans participated in even fighting for democracy and freedom for people in foreign lands, and then came back to a land themselves and were not free. You had GIs coming back from World War II that were lynched still in their uniforms, that had been fighting for America in other nations for their freedom. So we've never had an opportunity quite like this, where everybody is a Negro. I was talking to a couple of Caucasian friends of mine the other day, and I guess we were discussing politics, you know, and we were getting and discussing them. We're on the same level economically. I mean, we're working for the same company. We do the same thing, but they were like really supporting, you know, a particular group, and I'm like, yeah, you're in a union, and they don't even. I mean, come on, man. I'm like, we're all Negroes to a certain level of politicians, to a certain economic level of politicians, and they will use the Negroes. You got white Negroes and you got black Negroes. Joe Six-Pack is a white Negro. You know what I'm saying? Blue collar, you know, Republican is a white Negro. because he's not experiencing the benefits of the corporation. He's probably in a union, and now he probably hates the governor of Ohio because the guy he voted for is threatening his union. You see what I'm saying? They don't really care. You've seen the guys out there, the union people that have been protesting the changes. You know a lot of them are Republicans. You know a lot of them are Tea Party. You know a lot of them voted them in office, and now the guys they voted in office are saying the American people have spoken. They want us to do this. These guys are saying, but we voted for you. Negroes, all of us. Black Negroes and white Negroes. We just need to get wise. For real. That's my... It always tickles me when I say that. I don't know why. Nothing new under the sun. We have suffered a lot. We've experienced a lot of unfair attitudes and unfair practices. And sometimes we couldn't prove it, but we knew it was true. This has just been the reality of our lot in this land. But this is a new day. There's an African-American president. That's motivation that you can do more than you thought you could do. And secondly is the economic playing field has been leveled. So now we're at the same line in this race with the people who before were always ahead of us. Now it's up to you. Now you're going to go to the local college, the local community college with these same people at the same line. Are you gonna give up after a couple steps in the race? Oh, I can't do this. Or are you going to study extra hard so you at least tie and hopefully win? Just kick it around. This is the time. We can look over to the Far East and look at people that are suffering, how they've figured out a way. We can look at the people in the Middle East and see how many of them have figured out a way. And many of them are still trying to figure out a way. And it is so important to these people that they die trying to make a way for their children and the future generations. So these people that are making a way, many of them are sacrificing their lives because they recognize that nobody's getting out of here alive. We're all going to die. But at least if my life isn't if I don't die in vain, if I die for a cause or a purpose, my child and my grandchildren might be better off than me. We need to garner those mindsets. Figure out a way. Figure out your unique way. And don't give up. Make it happen.